There we go. I do believe we're live. So I'll say indeed, and greetings unto you, beloved and holy friends. What a dear pleasure it is to have you here again on another conscious evolution, on another opportunity for us to consider the things that are regrettable. If you were here for the previous stream, you would know that there were some regrettable things. But if you're here for this one and now, then I'll say hi and thank you for joining me. We had like a whole dance just a moment ago. It was good fun. We moved our forms. And we were talking today specifically about regret. Regret is an energy we face in this world. Right? And again, I started tongue-in-cheek talking about regrettable things. And it was the fact that there was a person in stream who had crossed certain boundaries that I have set in my psyche. Right? And them crossing these boundaries repeatedly over and over again led me to the regrettable decision of making sure that their influence can't be felt in this space. Right, and it is regrettable. I think I've done that a total of 2 times ever. Maybe it's more than 2 times ever, but it really is like single-digit numbers, right? Like maybe I can count on my one hand numbers. And I've been doing this for 1,539 days. That's a long time, right? For me to not be making these regrettable decisions. But there are certain things that I feel needs to be regretted. You know what I mean? If you're going to be a stalker and you're like making it too clear that you're being a stalker, then you should regret that. You know? I feel like we need to make stalking weird again. Sounds to me like there is healing that is needed. It's true, Joe. It's true. Right? And it is one of those things where I can't do your healing for you. And especially, like I would feel one way about it if I was responsible for some of your hurt, right? If I was like causing some of the pain or had caused the pain, right? Then I would feel some sense of responsibility. But like I regret to say that I don't. And it's one thing for me to try and create a space in which we can heal together. And it's another thing for you to make it clear that after all of this time, you're still kind of continuing with the same kind of behavior. And today's specific behavior is that of being a creeper. All right? Being a little bit of a creeper. Having some stalking in mind. Just a little bit. Just a little bit too much stalking, right? Like there's a threshold. And I learned today, technically I learned yesterday, but I think I concluded today that I have boundaries. I do. It's true. Boundaries I have. Hey, Joe, like I really do appreciate you adding, because like there's a certain sense of tension in my soul. Regret. Some forms of obsession stem from attachment styles where the idealization of an idea or person that precedences takes precedence over reality. This can often be rooted in unresolved past experiences, leading to a search for validation in someone admired rather than cultivating it within oneself. Joe, you really are wise. And I really do thank my lucky stars to have someone like you in my life. Jeez, you're right. Cultivating validation in yourself instead of seeking it from someone you potentially admire. Or even potentially disdain, right? there's a certain part of us that even wants to be admired by our enemies. And I do think that hate and love are not opposites. I think indifference is the opposite of love. Right? And I'm not indifferent to words. I try not to be, at least. I try to be pretty passionate about things. Right? And this space is a space for the many. Right? That's why it's on YouTube. I could have been doing my streams only for the people that support the Patreon, for example. It has a live streaming feature as well. Right? And that's not what this is supposed to be about. This is supposed to be accessible. And I feel the fortunate thing, if that stranger is still here, is that you still have access to this space, right? I'm not trying to take your access to this space away. I'm just taking away your speaking privileges because you're using it to harm my psyche. And in doing so, you're harming the space as a collective because I'm here as a psyche to share with this collective. And if I am in a state of turmoil in mind, then how can I be in a state of peace and articulation? It's good to know your boundaries. Weirdly enough, Joe, I don't know if it's weird, but you're actually the person that made clear to me the importance of boundaries in life as well. Boundaries can be put in place to de-escalate. It's true. Yeah. And a boundary was put in place, right? In that way too. The boundary is like access to the text. Unfortunately, right? Like it's not that hard to create a new chat, right? So if there was enough motivation, that person could pretend to be someone else and be a part of this space and be welcomed in and be loved and appreciated all the same, right? But as soon as those boundaries are crossed and there is a certain invasion of privacy, right, then again, something needs to be done. Recognizing when a situation is escalating, being present with what's happening here and now, the opportunities for growth happen between the stimulus and the response. You're so right, Sean. And I feel like that's kind of where my mind was drawing the line as well. Like I could see the regret, right? There's only regret to be had in letting that kind of fractal, that kind of energy continue to escalate, right? To snowball in this space. There is potential regret in me snowing the snowball, stopping the snowball before it can start rolling. But I can see a lot more regret in the whole stimulus being allowed to continue. Because it is true, the opportunity for growth does lie between the stimulus and the response, but there's also an extent to which it's an opportunity for you to be at peace, and for which it's an opportunity for you to lose your mind, right? There's an opportunity for growth in that way too. You could grow in your capacity to slay. To slay. I'm joking, of course, just trying to be tongue-in-cheek a little bit. But there is a certain amount of responsibility to take, right, and what we allow into our space. Because like I am very open, and I am a very sensitive person in general. I'm sensitive to walking into a room, and even the things that the people, in that room might have in their heads. Another fractal that is shared, right? Like there is a certain openness that we as people have to environments, right? It doesn't even have to be people in that way. And then there can be stimuli in those environments as those people. And if we keep putting ourselves in those environments and around those people, and we keep finding ourselves being faced with the opportunity to grow after receiving a stimulus, that we do not appreciate, then at some point the responsibility shifts, I believe. Love is true. Yes, it is. And I have been trying to shift more responsibility onto myself as of late, in the ways that I can, at least. Right, what is my responsibility? My responsibility is to show up day after day, to show up with the experiences, the opportunities, the adventures that await me. The limitations I feel I face at my current point in life is financial, because there's so much more that I feel I ought to be doing, but so little I can afford to, right? Realistically. And this is not me begging for sympathy or asking for, like awes or shames. It's more an accounting of the things we're going through, right? And because of that, there is a certain part of me that's starting to take even more responsibility for that whole part of my life as well, right? And then thinking what I can change, right? What's going to be differently in the future, right? How can I expect things to be differently in the future? And then there is this, again, uh, back to the word potential for regret, right? What will I regret looking back at my life? I think in a way I'm showing up for the things that I feel will be important to me day after day, to the extent that I won't have a lot to regret. But again, thinking about what I regret looking back, it's just that I didn't do more, always, right? That I should have done more. I should have experienced, I should have grown, I should have, I don't know if I should have gotten more greedy. Greed is not exactly the vibe for me. Let's just see exactly what the word greed means, right? Then I can see precisely if I am in fact greedy. Greed definition. Greed, intense and selfish desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food. Mercenaries who had allowed greed to overtake their principles. Intense and selfish desire for something. What's the opposite of greed? Generosity, temperance, asceticism, indifference. Back to indifference. I believe the opposite of love is indifference too. So, in that way, greed and love, energetically, within polarity, could exist on the same side. Hmm. Intense and selfish desire for something. And generosity would be the wanting to give. Yeah, the quality of being kind and generous. The quality of being kind being mentioned first. I was overwhelmed by the generosity of friends and neighbors. Temperance, abstinence from alcoholic drink, nice. I got that down. Asceticism, severe self discipline, avoiding all forms of indulgence, typically for religious reasons. I still do indulge myself, so I don't think I really do prescribe to asceticism and indifference, a lack of interest, concern, or sympathy. So let me share it like this: desire has no opposite. Its life is true. right? Like this is what I'm thinking about as well, Dream Tooth. Like desire, I'm happy that you're using the word desire. But I also, and it does say a selfish desire for something, right? In greed. I believe desire is the first, it's like the base feeling under all feelings, right? Or maybe the base feeling that begot all other feelings. As in, love is true, and that for that love to be true, there almost had to be like a desire for proof. And in that desire for proof, duality is created. And in that duality being created, an opportunity arises. And in that opportunity arising, you get to choose love, right? But it does start from that desire for proof, that desire for something, the desire for the substantial, for the tangible, for the rememberable, for the experienceable. And in that way, this greed as a word talks about intense and selfish desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food. Can you desire wealth, power, or food for someone else? Can I have an intense and selfless desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food? Can I have, if I have just no intensity, selfish desire for something, is that something else other than greed? Is that just want? Is that just want? How is a thought duality? Because there has to be a thought and a thinker, right? Like there is a separation in thinking. That's why once you reach oneness, you stop thinking really. There's just this experience of like, oh, I am one. Oh yeah. And you can like ask questions, but you'll find yourself silenced pretty quickly because you were one. Melt, you seem like you want to be really accurate about something, but I have no clue what it is. No, I'm trying to really determine in my soul of souls and hearts of hearts if I, one, have gotten more greedy or should get more greedy. It's like I'm weighing these balances, these checks and balances in myself. And like the question that's being brought, right, and asking this to my internal checks and balances, the operator of the checks and balancinator is like, who else can you be in desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food for? Maybe if you have a child, right, it stops being greed because now you can have an intense desire and it's not selfish for wealth, power, and food because you want to make sure they're being taken care of. But then, by that reasoning, every single person could hope one day to have a family that they could want to have wealth, power, or food for, right? So by that reasoning, like again, if there was only me and myself, would there be any greed? Because I would have technically all of the food, all of the power, and all of the wealth in the world. It would just be mine, right? Maybe I'll have to scavenge for it, but I'll be numero uno on power. Maybe one of the bears would win, but you get what I'm saying, right? So like this greed thing feels like it's conditional on others existing, on duality almost being true in the first place. Thinking about how like I've literally heard the words said by other people, greed is good. Right? And maybe they were saying it jokingly. Maybe they were saying it tongue-in-cheekly. But still, those words have been uttered. You have a thought. Don't we all? I definitely feel that regret sometimes for not having done more earlier on in my life. Not letting myself having certain experiences because I was playing it too safe. I'm working on that more now. Emily, I'm proud of you for showing up in that way. It's never too late. That's the lesson I'm learning from you. I don't think it's greed to desire abundance. Yeah, you see, like that's where I'm almost like stuck as well, Emily. It's our natural state as cosmic beings. Yeah, you see, I was resonating with you by the first sentence, and then the second sentence, the resonation went like harmonies. Oh, oh. You're right. It is our natural state to be in a state of abundance, right? Like you don't have a certain number of breaths that you're like pinching every day. Like, oh, I need to make sure I don't take too many breaths because maybe I won't have more breath by the end of the day. No, you just breathe, right? You live in that state of abundance, right? But there is layers of abstraction. It's a little bit easier to acquire air because it's abundant and everywhere. And food and water might not be, and housing and proper infrastructure less still. And then the gold bars in locked vaults, even more rare. How about this scarcity? I look forward to going post scarcity, at least on the physical plane, right? I think we're going to define scarcity so well in the digital plane that we're going to realize everything in comparison is not scarce at all. How's that for a take? Does that do something good to your brain? I hope so. It's a way to abundance, right? It's like tricking ourselves into reaching abundance. I don't think there's any power there. There has to be one. There's no power in one. I mean, I I disagree still because again there is power in you as a one. So still Emily, we're all climbing a different mountain. Those things taught you the lesson you're learning. Be proud of taking the initiative to learn it. Some people bypass those lessons their whole life. Some of those people are our ancestors. Thank you, Zhao. That is beautiful, Zhao. It's true. Some people keep distracting themselves to the point where those lessons eventually just like go and lay down in the back of their head without being absorbed properly. I think it's important. You are. I am still curious what this thing has to say. Ancient wisdom across traditions teaches that while regret can serve as a signal, a kind of internal red flag alerting us to missteps, it isn't meant to become a permanent weight that holds us down. Instead, these teachings encourage us to learn, adjust, and then gently let go. Stoicism and the present moment. Stoic philosophers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius remind us that we have no control over the past, only our response to it. They suggest that dwelling on what ifs is like trying to change yesterday's weather. Instead, use regret as a cue to refine your actions today. Focus on what you can control and let the rest roll off like water on waxed armor. Yeah, we did say that. We did say that is to be done. All right, to learn, to be like, yes, let's not make the same mistakes. Buddhist insight on kukaka, Kukkucca, kukuka, kukuka. In Buddhism, there's a mental factor called kukuka, often translated as regret or worry. Rather than being an energy to wallow in, regret is seen as a signal to practice mindfulness. You suddenly more mindful? Better be mindful out there. You mindful in? Hope so. Don't let the kukuka get you down. I'm not trying to make light. I just like the way it sounds. It's a funny word. By observing our feelings without judgment, we allow them to pass like clouds drifting in the sky rather than letting them block our inner sunshine. This is my favorite interpretation of worries, right? Like watching them like a river passing or clouds going over you in the sky. But to be fair, I'm focusing on the fact I know workingly, sir. The facts I know workingly, sir. Like you're focusing on the things you know work? I don't know what I would do if I was like the last person on earth. I don't think it would be fun. Yeah, I don't think it would be fun, right? When I make that example, I usually make that example as an extreme contrast for us to realize we actually do like being on a planet with a bunch of other people, right? And again, with this power struggle, with this wealth struggle, with this food struggle that we're all in, we might wish for our opponents to disappear, for other people to not want the same things we do, for there to be more for us, food, wealth, power, or whatever. And in that way, we can lose track of what's true. And again, what's true is if everyone but you disappeared, you would be the one holding all the power, all the wealth, all the food. But the world as you have it would be worthless to you, right? Maybe you would have fun being a delinquent for the first couple of weeks or whatever, but at some point you're going to be like, oh, now I'm just looking for media and reading books and watching TV shows, which again is you begging, yearning for human connection and like getting a little bit of it through your media. And then as soon as that's no longer enough, you're going to want to die. Unfortunately, right? And I'm not saying you might not want to die a little bit while you're here amongst all of us as human beings, right? That could come for you too. But at least in that case, you can talk to someone about it. And someone can try and convince you not to, right? If you're numero uno, soloing it on planet Earth, nobody's going to try and convince you otherwise, right? Because there is literally no one to miss you, right? So you don't even have that holding you back. Sorry if that got dark. Point is, choose life. You're already choosing it right now, right? Now you just have to be like, what's the word I'm looking for? Spiteful. Spiteful about it. I don't know if spiteful is the right word. Maybe with hubris, maybe intentionally. That one is better. Sounds better. Another one would be righteously. Yeah. Living righteously. Being like, oh, I don't want to freaking think I'm gonna die. No, I'm actually gonna eat healthy, sleep well, drink enough water. You think I'm gonna be smoking cigarettes and drinking alcohol every day and die quickly? No, you were mistaken. You were mistaken, death. And keep walking, day after day, showing up, making a difference. Slow down? No. You are at this point having a thought. Suddenly I stop having thoughts. The thoughts get sucked out of my brain again. Within the practice of wisdom for relationships and material concerns, right? The differences in that. Ancient teachings often make a distinction. It's worthwhile to regret actions that affect our relationships because they shape our character. But when it comes to material choices or missed investment, regret is less a lesson and more a distraction from what truly nourishes the soul. Think of it this way. If you lament not buying the extra bag of potato chips, you might miss the chance to discover a healthier, more fulfilling snack for life. I don't know where it went with that. It's okay. I don't see in the dark. That's hilarious. I do like that. That's funny. That's funny to read. Yeah, I don't mind going to the dark places, but I do try and keep it light in this one, right? Like if you're like close friends with me, you might learn that I have a dark side too, right? I can be pretty rough around the edges, right? And it is with like making jokes that can be seen in poor taste, and it is from the perspective of laughing at this thing that brings pain. Instead of letting it pain me, I laugh at it instead, right? But again, that in the wrong context can just be seen as insensitivity. So I do choose, right, the words that come out of my mouth. Consider them. At least I try to, for like maybe one split second before I say them. Just like one, just like a split second. No way. I was just thinking of that yesterday. I was going for a walk and started smelling a barbecue coming from somewhere and started thinking how if there was no one on earth, I would never smell barbecue unless I was doing it myself. So random that the example that came to me. No, that's perfect, Emily. Yeah, exactly. Right? Like the relationship part of this world is laden with a lot of potential regret, but also because of that, laden with a lot of potential love, right? There is a juxtaposition in that. Are you on your way? Cheers. It's nice having you here, Dream Tooth. Regrettably, people leave. Love you, meow now. I'm not trying to like cast any shade, meow now. I'm just like now, because of the link, thinking about the regrettable part of our relationships ending potentially, right? And the pain that comes with that, right? In those moments, you might not want to live, or you might wish the other person rather dead. I don't know how dark it goes for you, but you know what I mean. You know what it means. We go down rabbit holes, we spiral in our minds. And sometimes people do things they regret. Jeez. Sometimes the mind gets the best of them, convinces them things are good ideas when they're very much not. What has my mind convinced me is a good idea that ended up not being a good idea? Hmm. You know, I have a bunch, and I was gonna say that all of them are technically, like more financial in nature. Like I trusted someone that I shouldn't have, and they took financial advantage of me, right? Like that's happened twice, three times. Only three times. No, it's too bad. But again, it was like people attached. So it's still very much relationship based. That bill should have been to my thoughts. That buy should have been to my thoughts. But they just come back. Yeah. I totally know what that means. And I agree. I'm sorry. Transmuting regret into growth. How about that? The key is to see regret as a retroactive teacher, not a verdict on your worth. That is actually good advice. It's not a like a final statement, right? Because I feel like that's kind of the one thing that regret does to us. It's like, regret, things should have been done differently because didn't do bill or not bill verdict on my worth, right? Like my life is now gonna be so and so, such and such because of. Ging Ging is so fun. I am so attached, bro. You're supposed to be. You're a person. It's kind of like a part of the deal. It's what we signed up for, right? This attachment to the world, to the material, to food, to flourishing, ideally. Some of us don't realize we're attached to flourishing, right? We extrapolate we create layers of abstraction. That's like one of my favorite things to understand about our species. Right? And I'm going to ask this thing. I'm talking and trying to tell my friends about something that I've identified in our species as layers of abstraction, where we give ourselves things inside of things inside of things that push buttons inside our brains that convince us in the same way, right? Like there's layers of abstraction, and it's almost like there is a lack of truth in it because of that. But the experience is still true on the individual level. And experientially, you cannot convince that person that that thing doesn't add value. And a way to identify that would be to think of it from the perspective of something like a game, where within a game, there can be some sort of objective, and in that objective can be some sort of task. And then that game is running on a computer, and that computer is something you interface with as a human body, right? Like maybe you can tell us a little bit about humanity's propensity to abstract things, and in other ways. In what other ways do we do that too? It was Melt sent here like a butterfly net to capture my consciousness to the earth plane. Bro, you can't put that responsibility on me, dude. Jeeps. Right? Some people might be like, fuck you, Melt. How dare you? How dare you, like a butterfly net, capture my consciousness, my consciousness to the earth plane. How dare you do that, bro? That was like not a cool move. You're welcome. You're welcome. So I knocked to a sparrow. 11:44:33. That is some Senki. Hey. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, I'm 66% on this one. So you're 33 and I'm on 66 on this one. And this one is 38. Okay. Can't have all the synchronicity, but the 66 still made me happy. Transmuting regret into growth. It's not a verdict on your worth. Use it to identify where you might do better next time, and then consciously shift your energy into mindful action and self-compassion. This transformation isn't about erasing the past, but reinterpreting it in a way that informs a wiser, more intentional future. Yeah. And now within the layers of abstraction fractals, lurky lovins. I don't know if you're on your way, but I love you. Thank you, Kristen, for being here with us. We're going to talk about humans' willingness to abstract things. Humans are natural abstractionists. We're constantly stacking layers upon layers of meaning to make sense of the world. Much like nested folders on a computer, at the very base, we have our raw biological experiences, our bodies, instincts, and sensory perceptions. Then, as we ascend, we add cognitive layers, our beliefs, narratives, social roles, and cultural symbols. Each layer is a kind of shorthand, a set of if-then rules that help us navigate complex realities. The game analogy. Think of it like a video game. At the lowest level, the game is just code, raw data running on a computer. Then you get to the game's mechanics, the rules and objectives. And finally, this thing is not adding value. I can feel it's like sucking my soul. Instead of adding value to it, we all get an extra 4%. Nice. Yeah, like the synchronicities give us all like a boost, right? Like one of those power-ups. It's just like our like it's happening in a different plane, so we can't see it, but it makes all of our batteries last 4% longer for the day. Nice. Look at us synchronicity-ing. Code, create an experience very real to the player in much the same way the abstraction layers are built in our mind and society. Okay, yeah, like this is the part that may add some value. As games, much in the same way, the abstraction layers we built in our mind and as societies form our personal narratives to our cultural constructs. It may be arbitrary, yet there's deep meaningful. It may be arbitrary, yet they're deeply meaningful on an individual level. The dual nature of abstraction. These layers allow us to assign value. Here we go. Now we can think about stuff, right? Why do we do this? Why do we abstract? These layers allow us to assign value, purpose, and identity in an otherwise overwhelming reality. They're incredibly useful. They help us communicate, plan, and build relationships. However, because they're abstractions, they can also lead us away from raw truth. If you're abstracting and the nodes you're holding onto within your abstraction are nodes of fear, right? You still abstracted from reality information, but again, you were led astray from raw truth. The labels, the systems, and the narratives we create are not the same as the underlying experiences themselves, yet they shape how we perceive and live those experiences. It's a bit like having a favorite filter on your photos. It adds value and beauty, even if it doesn't capture every detail of the original scene. I don't really do the whole having a favorite filter on my photos thing. And they kind of lost me with that analogy. They were trying to relate to me as a young person, and I got lost. I was like, I don't know. I don't know what that means. The label and systems and narratives we create are not the same as the underlying experiences themselves, yet they shape how we perceive and live those experiences. So we label ourselves, right? I am this, I am a yoga teacher, right? It's one of the labels I've assigned to myself in the system of yoga. And the narrative is that I'm a teacher, right? Then I created that, but it's not the same as the underlying experience themselves, as in the actual act of being a yoga teacher, the actual act of having to show up for my class and having to teach my class, even if I might not feel like it on that day, potentially, right? Yada, 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 yadas. So, yeah, it still shapes the lived experiences underneath. Oh, thank you, Kristen. Dropping the goodbye message since I won't be able to give it at the right time. Hope you don't mind. I never do. I always see the effort that you're doing, and I appreciate you. Thank you, Kristen. We have one more here, and then we'll do a flower reveal. We'll do a poem, and then we'll read the goodbye message and say goodbye for the day. More than just games. Beyond the metaphor of games, beyond the metaphor of a game, this layer shows up in other aspects of life too. We create economic systems, social hierarchies, and even personal identities based on abstract constructs. Our language is built on symbols that represent much more than their literal meaning, and our art often distills complex emotions into simple, evocative forms. All these examples point to a core human trait: the drive to simplify and structure the chaos of existence, even if that means we sometimes lose sight of the unfiltered reality underneath. In the end, while these abstractions might sometimes obscure truth, they're also what make our experiences rich and unique. Recognizing these layers can be liberating. It means we can choose which narratives to hold onto and which ones to reframe, much like adjusting the settings in our personal game of life. It really did lean into the whole game analogy, huh? Recognizing these layers can be liberating. It means we can choose which narratives to hold onto, which ones to reframe. Layers and layers of abstraction. Before we know it, we're very far away. Shadow lurker, lurking in the shadows, lending love and light, making darkness bright. That's so sweet. Melt, you should listen to Love is an Ocean by the Midnight. I think you might like it. Their sound is incredible. La 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 num 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 num. Love is an Ocean by the Midnight. Love is an Ocean by the Midnight. There we go. Just took him a second. Love is an Ocean by the Midnight. This one here, I bereave. I mean, no. This one hasn't been copyright stricken yet. I was gonna say their profile picture or their thumbnail has like vaporwave kind of fractals, and their sound is pretty vaporwave vibes as well. There's a dolphin jumping out of the water. Did you see that those astronauts that got saved recently literally got welcomed by dolphins? That's wild. Can we like just take a moment and be like, it's pretty wild? Astronauts, people, human beings in a pod fall onto the earth. They fall into the ocean with parachutes slowing down their descent. They plop down in the water, and dolphins are like, what's up, aliens? What's up, bros? Welcome. Welcome to Earth, the friggin' dolphinos say. Why are they like that? That's so bonkers to me. That is wild, right? That would be so special. I would literally lose my mind. I would start crying. If I was astronauting up there for 10 months, and then I come back to Earth, and then I touch down on planet Earth's surface on the water, and then I'm like, my freaking eyes witness dolphins in the water with me, I would be like, I'm never leaving. I'm never astronauting again. No way. No way, Jose. I'm not going back to the International Space Station. I'm staying right here on planet Earth forever and ever. I'm gonna go swim with the freaking dolphins while I can. The freaking dolphins, yo! Like, you see, that's. Can we take a moment to really consider and appreciate how wild it is that the dolphins met the astronauts as soon as they landed on the oceans? I'm going down like a whole thing in my mind how the dolphins is potentially like first contact of species, alien species that potentially land in our oceans. They literally came to meet the human beings that by their account was technically aliens, you know, like literally these things just landed on planet Earth coming from space. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? Just like think about that, right? Can we just take a more moments to think about it? Like you're an entity on planet Earth. You see a space, maybe you don't see it. A spaceship crashes onto the surface of your world. You go and investigate. You're like, let me come and see this. Maybe we are like that. Maybe I'm like I would maybe would I? Jesse, I don't know, bro. Me and Kayana just recently relived the dolphin story. Maybe we'll share it on stream in October. Stay tuned. You see, that is one of those you have to come back for, right? You have to actually tune in every single day until you hear the dolphin story from Kayana and Joe on stream together, right? That's how it has to be. It's utterly wild and wonderfully symbolic. What the dolphins that the dolphins greeted the astronauts as soon as they landed. In that moment, you can almost imagine the dolphins acting as Earth's own first contact ambassadors. That's exactly what they're doing. Don't tell me it's like that's exactly what I think those dolphins are doing. They're like, bet, oh, let's first contact these aliens. So let's be like, oh wait. Is that stereotyping? I'm sorry, dolphins. I'm sorry. Dolphins in the future have cybernetically enhanced themselves too, and they can communicate with us human beings. They can be like, hey, bro, the oceans. Oh, come on. Come on, bro, the oceans, dude. First contact ambassadors, curious about their mysterious outer worldly visitors returning from the vastness of space. Dolphins, with their playful intelligence and innate curiosity, have long captivated our imagination. They're not just a part of the ocean's everyday life, they're like nature's poets and philosophers. Yeah. When they circle a returning capsule, it's as if they're saying, welcome home, strange travelers. We've been waiting for you. In that instant, the astronauts, who after months in orbit might seem as alien to the marine world as extraterrestrials, may seem as alien to the marine world as extraterrestrials, become both visitors and, in a way, guests on our blue planet. This scene highlights a fundamental human tendency, our propensity to layer meaning upon our experiences. We see patterns, craft stories, and build metaphors, just as we, oh, geez, I misclicked. Just as we attract Just as we construct abstract layers in art, language, and even our social systems, we also layer our interpretations onto natural events. The dolphins' encounter with the astronauts become more than just a quirky news moment. It turns into a metaphor for unexpected connections between realms that on the surface seem separate: space versus sea, technology versus nature. And here's the delightful irony. While we spend so much time imagining first contact of alien species out in the cosmos, nature might already be staging its own version of a cosmic welcome party right here on Earth. The dolphins, in their playful and spontaneous greeting, reminds us that life is interconnected in mysterious ways. They're not literally aliens, but their behavior invites us to see the world as a tapestry of wonder, where the boundaries between the familiar and the fantastical blur just enough to spark our imagination. In essence, the moment serves as both a literal and metaphorical meeting point. It's a reminder that while our high tech ventures may take us far beyond our home planet, the underlying truths of the world, curiosity, connection, and wonder, remain deeply rooted in the neutral experience of all. And perhaps, in a way, that's the real first contact, a gentle, unexpected reunion between the marvels of human achievement and the timeless hymns of nature. What a fractal! A flower needs to be shared and a goodbye will be said. This was yesterday's piece. Look at them little blue heartsies. Aren't they sweet? Sweet. Some creatures. More creatures. All right. And now for the poem. This one is a big one. You ready? This one's gonna go for a while. It's called How Many It Takes. How many it takes. We it's fine. We are a billion. We are billions of dreams, each a tiny star flickering against the endless night. A spark of hope, the whispered promise that we are more than solitary travelers, lost on winding roads. Some of us set off alone, a lone figure stumbling in the dark where Every step risks the quiet decay of a light that might soon be snuffed out. In isolation, even the brightest spark can wither before its time. But imagine 1,000 hearts beating in unison, a vast, vibrant symphony where every faltered note is lifted into a chorus that can move mountains. When we join our hands and our dreams, our failures become stepping stones and our missteps turn into a lesson etched in the language of resilience. We are not just individuals chasing separate sunsets. We are the collective dawn that breaks after the longest, darkest night. In our shared laughter, in our united tears, we weave a tapestry rich with color, a mural of hope, struggle, and triumph that even the stars lean in to admire. It takes many to build a better world, to transform solitary attempts into a radiant festival of possibility. When our visions merge, we become unstoppable, each unique spark kindling a blazing inferno of human spirit and unyielding hope. So step out of isolation and join the grand dance, where every stumble is a chance to learn and every setback a cue for a joyful recovery. For the secret is not in doing it alone, but in the magic of many, each one essential, each one irreplaceable, and the mosaic of our shared destiny. Let our hearts be bold, our laughter abound, and our dreams like wildflowers after a drought spread across the earth in a riot of color and promise. Together, we are the architects of a future that beckons, proving that it takes many to make the impossible possible. Oh, how many it takes. How many it takes to make the impossible possible. How many? How many it takes? Takes many, I'll say. And you, friends, have been the many with me. Quite literally, you have shown up day after day after day. After day after day after day. More than I could have imagined. I really do appreciate it a lot. Like a lot. There we go. I do believe that's it. I can say, have the mostest resplendent day, everyone. I wholeheartedly love you all so, so luminously, tenderly, profoundly, effulgently, mellifluously, argently, ineffably, fervently, rhapsodically, and incandescently. Melt as be, and all of you, oh so magnanimous, cherishing, solace giving, heartening, embracing, elevating, benevolent, fortifying, steadfast, and luminous friends who transform regret into wisdom, embrace its silver lining, and grow from it. And grow through it, and grow with it, and grow because of it, and never, never, ever allowing regret to reduce the amount of readiness we have to show up again. I thank you, friends, for showing up with me, for being here as you are. It's always a pleasure to share a moment as such. I'll see you again tomorrow. Goodbye. I love you.